the return of Granny Agapa. The Altai Mountains, much like the foothills, have always been considered a peculiar territory. Every year, a multitude of pilgrims, ufologists, neo-pagans, witches, shamans, and simply the curious come here in search of belovedy, anomalous zones, holy sources, and miraculous rocks. Tourists also make their way to these mysterious lands. What do those who've been in the mountains for more than a few rounds tell the newcomers by the campfire at night? Usually, it's about the white tourist and Granny Agapa. The first is just a harbinger of trouble, but Granny. Her dwelling place is the middle reaches of the Pashanka River. This river is swift and, moreover, dangerous. Unfortunate incidents happen here from time to time. However, that's not the main point. In the middle of the Pashanka's flow, there is a village with the same name. There aren't many houses left there now, but it used to be a sizable settlement. And it all started in this village. Two individuals appeared out of nowhere, a reclusive widower and his almost grown-up daughter. She was beautiful, but her name was somewhat outdated. They called her Agapa. Local guys, as usual, started courting the beauty from the very first evening. The suitor escorts Agapa to her little house. Her house is on the edge of the village, almost on its own. A couple of days after such courtship, the guy falls ill. 3 or 4 weeks later, the illness leads him to the grave. Doctors couldn't do anything about it. He withered away before their eyes, aging rapidly. Wrinkles, gray hair, balding, failing eyesight, and all the rest that comes with natural aging. But Agapa thrived. She rarely attended local gatherings, only 2 or 3 times a year, and so time passed. At first, suspicions didn't reach the villagers, but after 10 years they realized something was amiss here. By that time, Agapa was the only one left. Yet, neither the years nor the loss of her father seemed to age her. 100 years have passed since then. Similar incidents with local guys happened from time to time in the surrounding areas. Either people weren't paying attention, or Granny Agapa was being more cautious. At least the villages around didn't speak of the unfamiliar beauty. But tales began to circulate about a granny who would approach geologists, or anyone, really. In those parts, she would talk, ask for help, and some compassionate guy would go with her. Come morning, he would make it back to the camp on his own, looking like he aged decades. The last incident was in July 2016. River tourists on 2 catamarans were rafting down the Pashanka. They stopped for the night, lit a campfire. An old lady approached them, asking for help. Andre chose to help the lonely grandmother. He left. He returned in the morning. That same day, on the river, he was already starting to feel ill. He died on the 4th day, looking like a deeply aged man when the group returned to Tyaman. A cat lives even after death. Many folks believe, not without reason, that a cat is the only living being on this planet that feeds on the negative energy of the earth, living simultaneously in 2 or more dimensions, playing with household spirits, and protecting our homes from uninvited guests. Cats, after death, often become ghosts and visit both their friends and enemies. As an example of a cat saving its owner from imminent death, let me share a mystical story that happened in 1947. Having graduated from medical school, Galina, a native Muscovite, received an assignment and moved to live and work in the city of Ashgabat. The newly appointed doctor was sent to the outskirts of the city, to a small clay house where the only furniture was a table, a chair, and a bed. To alleviate her loneliness, the woman picked up a pitch, black cat from the street and named her Bagheera. Galena loved the cat dearly, and Bagheera reciprocated. One day, a cobra slithered into the house, and without hesitation, Bagheera attacked it. The snake bit the cat, but it didn't continue attacking the homeowner and slithered away. Bagheera, however, succumbed to the venom. One night, a year after the incident with Bagheera, Galena heard the deceased cat's meowing right next to her ear. Waking up and listening again, Galena heard the meowing under her window from the street. Going outside and calling for the cat, the owner felt the ground slipping from under her feet. In the next moment, a terrible crash echoed, and her house collapsed like a house of cards, the beginning of an earthquake that claimed many lives. But there are cases where cat spirits behave quite the opposite and become killers of humans. Once, in St. Petersburg, high schoolers Victor and Seaman caught a stray cat on the street, dropped it down a stairwell from the 14th floor for a laugh. The cat proved resilient, but the tormentors finished the job with sticks. 2 weeks later, the friends, animal tormentors, were standing on a platform waiting for a suburban train. Suddenly, a cat killed by the guys appeared a few meters away, growing in size rapidly, and then jumped towards them. Frightened, Seaman recoiled and ended up under the train. Don't mess with cats, for no one knows the full extent of their world. A terrifying painting. I never believed in anything supernatural until I became a witness to the paranormal myself. Unfortunately, I had the fortune of encountering the unusual, which significantly changed my perspective on the unexplained and somewhat subdued my pessimism. Let me share with you a story that still sends shivers down my spine, even though many years have passed since it happened. It all went down in the chilly autumn of 2007. One of my relatives passed away, leaving me a spacious apartment in the city center. For me, a rural dweller, it was an excellent chance for a change of scenery. I moved to the city right away. The interior of the apartment impressed me. Lavish surroundings, elegant souvenirs, stylish furniture. Everything suited me, from the windows to the bathroom. The only thing I didn't like was one spot in the bedroom. The wall there was completely bare, devoid of anything. I decided it needed some decoration. I opted for a mirror. I decided to check out the second-hand market, conveniently located across the street. Things were much cheaper there than in the store, and I needed to save. As I strolled through the rows, my attention was suddenly drawn to a man selling a painting. The painting amazed me. I had never seen such perfection in my life. The girl depicted on the canvas was one of the most beautiful creatures I had ever seen. She stood tall and was irresistible. The frame was equally impressive. Antique, handmade, undoubtedly worth a fortune, experience told me. The price would be high. I would have demanded a hefty sum for such a rarity myself. Not expecting much to come out of it, I decided to inquire about the price, just out of curiosity, and I was surprised. The seller asked for not much at all. For such beauty, surely he didn't know anything about art, I thought, unaware of how wrong I was. Much later, it dawned on me why the price was so low. Without thinking twice, I naturally handed over the required amount and became the proud owner of a masterpiece. Once home, I immediately hung up the painting, admired it for a bit, and then went about my usual business. Football was on TV, and when it was time to sleep, I lay down with a pleasant sense of relaxation. When the clock struck 3 in the morning, I suddenly woke up. At first, I thought a cuckoo and a clock had awakened me, but it was not the case at all. Whispering. That's what made me sit up abruptly. I listened, turned my head. Everything seemed quiet and in its place. Nothing that could have woken me up. The clock was ticking steadily. The full moon was shining brightly outside the window. A late car rushed past the house, and then my gaze suddenly fell on the painting. Something about it unsettled me. I took a closer look, but the painting seemed perfectly normal. The same lovely lady. Deciding it would be nice to air out the room, I got up to open the window. Opening the window, I turned around and was stunned. The image on the painting was moving. However, it wasn't the enchanting beauty that had captivated me. On the canvas, a massive head covered in sores appeared, followed by bloodied hands. Whatever it was, it clearly wanted to get out of the painting. Instead of a fair face, decaying skin showed, the envy of many makeup artists working on horror movies. Blood oozed from the hands, lacking fingers and nails. It seemed like whatever was in there had been trying to break free for a long time, attempting to leave the painting, its place of confinement. Suddenly, a strong wind blew. The window slammed shut with a loud bang. The curtains momentarily obstructed my view, and when I could see again, I almost died. The creature was getting closer to me. It seems that, in that moment, I turned gray. I'm sure if fear hadn't paralyzed me, a scream of despair would have erupted from my lips. The monster advanced toward me, dragging itself across the floor, leaving behind the stench of death and decay. It emitted wheezing, raspy sounds. I summoned all my strength, tried to move. My legs wouldn't budge. The creature approached. I thought it was my last chance. So, using sheer willpower, I managed to shift myself from the spot, and I did it. I bolted, knocking over objects in my path. Behind me, a chilling laughter echoed, prolonged and uproarious. I ran out into the yard and, panting, sat on a bench. I stared at the window of my apartment, and I swear, in the bright moonlight, I distinctly saw a dark silhouette behind the window glass. Dawn found me on that bench. Gathering myself, I went back to the apartment and inspected it. Everything was fine in the apartment, and the painting still depicted the same beautiful blonde girl. Ripping the painting off the wall, I dragged it into the yard and set it ablaze. After that incident, my nerves were shot to hell. I even had to visit a psychologist a couple of times, but over time, I calmed down and life returned to its course. The only reminder of that horrifying night was a tuft of gray hair at my temple. Sometime after work, my story had a continuation. Watching the crime news, I learned that a man's body had been found strangled in his apartment. How it happened? The investigation didn't know. The door was locked from the inside, and when they showed the room where the corpse was found, my heart constricted. On the wall hung the painting I burned in the yard. The only thing different in it was the creepy grin on the beauty's face on the canvas.